I came home on a Thursday. The flight was 2 hours late and I smelled like stale airport coffee and recycled cabin air. My shoulders ached from hauling samples across 3 cities in 5 days. But as I stepped through the front door, there she was, Rebecca, glowing like something out of a maternity catalog. She smiled big, that blinding, too-white smile she used to flash when we were young and broke, trying to make each other laugh over canned soup. Except this smile was different. "I have news," she said, grabbing my hands like she couldn't keep still. Billy came bounding down the stairs behind her. 6 years old, wild with energy, still in his Spider-Man pajamas though it was past noon. I knelt, hugged him, breathed him in like I always did, then stood and looked at her. "We're pregnant," she said. "Twins." She said it like it was the best thing that ever happened to us. Her hands trembled with excitement. Her eyes searched mine for something. Joy, shock, approval. Anything but what she saw, because what she saw was me blinking once. Just once. The nodding. And saying, "Wow, that's amazing." I kissed her on the forehead. Said all the right things. Asked if she was feeling okay. How long she'd known. If Billy knew yet. She launched into her plans like she'd been waiting to release the floodgates. Baby shower themes, gender reveal ideas, which room to convert into the nursery. I followed her into the kitchen, sat where I always sat, and watched her dance around in sock feet while making tea. But something didn't sit right. I'm not a suspicious man. Never have been. I work hard, travel for business, and always come home. I've never had a reason to question my wife. Until now. Because Rebecca had been distant lately. More makeup, late grocery trips, laughter that didn't include me. But I chalked it up to stress. Parenting, marriage, life. That's what people always say, right? You just grow apart. Still, I remembered our last night together, 3 months ago. I remembered it because it had been quick, impersonal, and she'd barely looked at me. And now she was, what? 10, 12 weeks pregnant? I looked across the table at Billy, who was building a tower out of napkin rings and humming a tune from one of his cartoons. He looked nothing like me, and I suddenly saw my life like a set of blueprints I hadn't bothered to check, only to realize the walls were crooked, and the foundation had been poured on sand. I smiled at Billy. That boy had called me dad his whole life, but now I wasn't sure what that word meant anymore. 30,000 feet in the air, surrounded by sleeping strangers and humming engines. I finally opened the folder I'd named Home Security Logs. It wasn't security footage anymore. It was evidence. Months ago, I'd installed 2 cameras, one in the garage and another near the back porch. I never told Rebecca. It wasn't suspicious then. It was a habit. I'm the kind of man who believes in backup plans and redundancy. Redundancy keeps job sites running and marriages honest. Or at least I thought so. I clicked the first video. The date read March 12th. There she was, Rebecca, laughing, wearing that ratty Kansas State hoodie she used to sleep in. But she wasn't alone. Tim Miller, our neighbor, married, rotator cuff surgery last winter, talked more than he listened. They were drinking wine on our back steps. My wine, a gift from a client I'd been saving. He poured it like it was his damn house. She leaned into him, hand brushing his knee, then resting there. The next clip was from the garage. April 4th. Her hair was wet, like she'd just come out of the shower. She unlocked the side door. Tim walked in behind her. No hesitation. My jaw locked. I clicked through more. Kisses. Lingering touches. One video with her sitting on the hood of my truck, laughing while he stood between her legs. That was the moment something shut off inside me. Not rage, not sadness, just a click like a circuit breaker flipping. I closed the folder and stared at the tray table. The stewardess walked past offering drinks. I waved her off. What I needed wasn't on that cart. I had every right to lose my mind, but I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to throw plates or send angry texts. I was going to prepare. I opened another file, this one full of scanned receipts I'd quietly pulled from our trash, phone records, screenshots of late-night calls to an Emily who didn't exist. I'd been collecting, connecting, and storing. The pieces were already there. Now it was time to build something solid. This wouldn't be about revenge. It would be about control. I emailed a lawyer I'd met through a colleague. Quiet man, steel demeanor, military background, specializes in high-asset divorce. I asked for a meeting, told him it was time-sensitive. Then I opened my spreadsheet of joint accounts, began listing every asset with Rebecca's name on it, and made notes, who owned what, where, and how quickly it could be moved without triggering alarms. When I landed, I didn't text her that I'd arrived. I took a cab to a bank instead and opened a new account. New name, new passwords, new chapter. And when I checked into the hotel, I didn't feel tired. I felt focused, like a man with a blueprint in his hand and a hammer in his grip. The hardest part wasn't watching the footage, or reading the texts, or knowing another man had touched my wife in the house I built. No, the hardest part was pretending like none of it mattered. Day after day, I came home from that last trip with a smile stapled to my face. Rebecca ran into my arms like we were newlyweds again, her baby bump barely visible under one of my old sweatshirts. She smelled like lemon shampoo and secrets. "Billy's been asking for you non-stop," she said, hugging me a little too tight. "I missed him," I said. "I missed both of you." The words felt like sand in my mouth. Billy came flying out of the den, tablet in hand, shouting something about beating a level. I picked him up and let him wrap his arms around my neck. He was light, too light. I hadn't noticed before. I tucked him in that night like always, read him a chapter from Charlotte's Web. He fell asleep mid-sentence. Rebecca watched from the doorway. "You're such a good dad," she whispered, her voice cracking a little. I nodded, but in my head, I wasn't a dad. I was a forensic accountant, a spy, a soldier. I was documenting every smile, every lie, every transaction. I spent my nights with spreadsheets and backup drives. Every charge on her debit card was another breadcrumb. $143 at a spa on a Wednesday afternoon, $87 at a steakhouse where we never dined. I pulled security footage from the restaurant. There they were, her and Tim, laughing over wine like a married couple. His hand never left hers. I checked Billy's birth certificate. The date of conception didn't line up with my travel schedule 6 years ago either. I filed that away. I created a digital vault, encrypted everything, gave copies to a trusted friend, Jake, former army buddy, now a family law paralegal with a cynical streak and zero tolerance for cheaters. Jake looked at the files over beers one night. "You want scorched earth?" he asked. "No," I said. "I want quiet ruin." Rebecca, meanwhile, planned the gender reveal like it was the Super Bowl. She bought pink and blue balloons, cupcakes with colored cream filling, invited family, friends, even Tim and his wife, though he declined, obviously. She talked about paint samples and bassinets. I listened, smiled, took photos, and moved the last of my private savings into an untouchable trust. At night, she rolled over, curled up beside me, said things like, "I feel so lucky to have you," her breath warm against my neck. I stared at the ceiling and wondered how many men wake up beside the very person who's burning their life down. I wasn't looking for revenge. I was laying the foundation, because when it came down, it wouldn't be loud. It wouldn't be dramatic. It would be clean, surgical, undeniable. Just like my work. Just like me. The backyard looked like a Pinterest board threw up on it. Blue and pink streamers draped across the fence line. Cupcake towers on every table. Helium balloons bouncing in the breeze. Rebecca wore a long floral dress that hugged her belly and made her look like the Virgin Mary if the Virgin Mary lied through her teeth. "Smile for the camera," someone shouted. I smiled. She looped her arm through mine as friends gathered around the table. Her parents, her sister, a few co-workers. Tim wasn't there, of course. That would have ruined the magic. His wife had finally caught wind of something and grounded him pretty hard. Rebecca kissed my cheek. "Are you ready?" "More than you know," I said. She didn't catch it. We stood behind a massive box with a question mark on the front. Inside were colored balloons, blue for boys, pink for girls, blah blah blah. She counted down while guests cheered. 3, 2, 1. But I held up a hand before she pulled the string. "Before we do this," I said, I have something for you. The crowd went quiet. Rebecca blinked. What? I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out a small black box. It looked like a jewelry case. She lit up. Oh my God. David, what is this? I handed it to her. She opened it, and inside was a neatly folded set of papers. She stared at them. They unfolded. The smile broke first. Then the color drained from her face. Gasps rippled through the crowd. That, I said, is a set of divorce papers. You'll see the paternity test results attached to the back. I turned to the group, calm as a preacher at a funeral. I'd like to thank you all for coming. I know this was meant to be a celebration, and in a way it still is, because today, I'm freeing myself from a woman who's been sleeping with our married neighbor, Tim Miller, for over a year. The twins? Hi. And Billy? I paused, looking at the boy playing with a balloon behind the grill. May not be mine either. Silence. Rebecca stammered. David, don't do this. I cut her off. I've got footage, phone records, GPS logs. You name it, I've got it. But I'm not here to fight. I'm here to let everyone see the truth. I turned and walked toward the gate. Rebecca chased after me, grabbing my arm. You're ruining everything. I looked her dead in the eye. No, Rebecca, you did that. I'm just drawing back the curtain. I stepped into my truck, started the engine, and backed out of the driveway to stunned silence. Behind me, the balloons still floated in the box. Nobody pulled the string. The courtroom didn't care about gender reveals, tears, or fairy tale endings. Cared about evidence, and I came loaded. Rebecca sat across from me at the long oak table, flanked by a lawyer who looked more like a yoga instructor than a litigator. She wore a black blazer over a maternity blouse, her hair pulled into a tight bun, as if dressing seriously could make the lies vanish. I didn't flinch. My attorney, Mark Foster, ex-Marine, built like a brick wall, clicked a remote and queued up the first video. The screen flickered to life. There was Tim on our back porch, leaning in like a high school crush. Exhibit A, Mark said, voice steady. Time-stamped surveillance footage from the marital home. The judge didn't blink. Rebecca did. I leaned back in my chair, arms folded, while video after video rolled. Tim entering the garage, the shared wine, the hotel receipts synced to texts from her phone. We'd linked everything. Times, places, patterns. Exhibit H, Mark continued, sliding a folder across the table. Paternity test results for the minor child, Billy. Rebecca's attorney opened the folder, scanned it, and her face dropped. She turned to whisper, and Rebecca burst into tears. Your Honor, Mark said. My client was not only deceived into raising a child who is not biologically his, but he was also subjected to continuous emotional manipulation and marital fraud over the course of multiple years. The judge cleared his throat and folded his hands. I've reviewed all the evidence presented. I find no ambiguity in the facts. Rebecca sobbed, shoulders shaking. I didn't look at her. Mr. Branson, the judge said, using my last name, not hers. You are hereby awarded exclusive control of all premarital assets and protected retirement funds. The court recognizes your actions as justified and proportional to the harm endured. Rebecca's head dropped. In light of the paternity findings, the judge continued, you are relieved of all financial and custodial responsibility for the child, Billy. All custody will remain with the biological mother unless additional concerns arise. Mark nodded once. That was the plan. I stood slowly. My hands didn't tremble. My knees didn't buckle. I walked out of that courtroom with everything I came in with, except the lie I'd been living under for nearly a decade. As we left, Tim Miller stood outside the courthouse steps, pale and sweating. His wife, Paige, was beside him. She shoved a stack of papers into his chest and stormed off without a word. Divorce filings. I gave him one long, cold stare. He couldn't meet my eyes. The letter came in a plain envelope. No ceremony, no apology, just a thin sheet of truth from the lab confirming what I already knew in my gut. Billy wasn't mine. Not by blood. Not by DNA. Not by biology. But that didn't make reading it any easier. I sat alone at the kitchen table in the rental house, staring at the page like it might rewrite itself. Like maybe they'd send a follow-up that said, "Sorry, mix-up at the lab. Turns out you are his dad after all." But that never came. The silence in that little house felt louder than anything I heard in the courtroom. Rebecca tried to spin it, of course. Filed motions with her new lawyer. Claimed I was the only father Billy had ever known. Said I was abandoning the child. Played the sympathy card with the judge like she'd played me for years. But the court didn't bite. They reviewed everything. Text messages where she confessed to lying about timelines. Testimony from her sister who admitted she helped cover for the affair when Billy was born. And every single receipt that proved I wasn't even in the state when he was conceived. The judge made it clear. Mr. Branson is not the legal or biological father of the child. Custody shall remain with the biological mother and her current partner, Mr. Miller. Visitation is not required. I walked out of the building and didn't look back. I didn't sleep that night. Just sat in a chair by the window, watching cars pass in the distance. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about pride. It was Billy. He wasn't just a name on a certificate to me. He was every scraped knee I patched up. Every bedtime story. Every "Dad, watch this," shouted from the monkey bars. I had built a life around the idea that he was mine. And now, he wasn't. The next morning, Rebecca texted me, "He keeps asking for you. Please just come see him." I stared at the screen. Typed, "You made that impossible." Deleted it. Typed again, "Tell him I love him." Then deleted that too. Finally, I typed, "I'm not his father. You said it yourself. Let Tim handle it." Then I hit send and blocked the number. I didn't cry. Not that night, not the next. But something hollow settled behind my ribs. Like the space left behind when you tear out a wall and realize the house doesn't feel like home anymore. I wasn't Billy's father. And that truth, cruel as it was, set me free. I drove past the old house once. Didn't stop. Didn't slow down. Just enough of a glance to see the weeds starting to creep through the cracks in the driveway. A pink tricycle tipped over on the lawn, and peeling streamers still clinging to the fence from a party that ended in silence. They'd kept the place. Rebecca and Tim. The happy couple. Except happiness isn't how regret looks when it wakes up next to unpaid bills and crying babies. I heard things. Small town. People talk. Tim's truck was missing for a few days. Turned out he pawned it to cover medical bills after Rebecca's insurance lapsed. The twins were born premature. NICU stayed for 3 weeks. Expensive. Stressful. No village to help them now. No doting dad around to make sense of it all. I wasn't there. Billy asked about me at first. I know that much from Rebecca's sister, who couldn't resist updating me after a few drinks at a mutual friend's barbecue. "He cries at night," she said, eyes down. "Says he misses you. Tim doesn't talk to him much. Barely look at the twins." I nodded and said nothing. I wasn't going to let her guilt trip me with secondhand sorrow. That boy had been stolen from me with a smile and a lie. I didn't owe them closure. I'd already paid more than my share. Rebecca tried to hold it together. Got a job at a local dentist's office. She looked tired in the one photo someone tagged her in. Dark circles, baby spit up on her collar, a plastic smile that didn't touch her eyes. The fantasy had curdled into a grind. 3 kids, 1 paycheck, and a man who used to be the escape now looks like another prison. It didn't take long before the fights spilled into the street. Cops were called once, just yelling, no charges, but enough to draw curtains and whispers. Tim moved out for a few days, crashed with a cousin across town. Billy asked, "Where did my first dad go?" No one answered him. Meanwhile, I paid off my truck. Bought a small piece of land about 2 counties over. Quiet place. Simple. I planted trees with my own hands. Built a new workshop behind the house and filled it with my tools. Wood, metal, fire, and silence. No voices screaming. No fake apologies. No lies wrapped in pretty paper. Just space to breathe. Sometimes at night, I'd sit out on the porch with a cold beer and the radio low, listening to the wind. And I'd think about how easily a whole life can burn down when it's built on false promises. Rebecca wanted excitement. She got chaos. She wanted freedom. Now she's trapped in a house that used to be ours, with a man who never planned to raise kids, and 3 mouths to feed on a cashier's salary. Funny thing about betrayal, it always comes back home, dragging its consequences like a busted tailpipe. The call came on a rainy Sunday. I was finishing up a project in the shop, custom oak mantle for a retired vet down the road, when my phone buzzed on the workbench. Unknown number, local area code. I almost let it go, but something told me to pick up. Hello. Silence. Then a voice I hadn't heard in months. Cracked, small, familiar. David. It's me, Rebecca. I didn't say a word. Just wait. I just wanted to say I'm sorry, she whispered. I don't expect you to forgive me. I need you to know that. The sound of crying drifted through the line. Not loud, not dramatic, just the raw kind, the kind that's not meant for an audience. I made mistakes, she said. Big ones. I ruined everything. Still, I said nothing. Billy, he misses you. He still calls you Dad sometimes. He asks if you'll come visit. I stared at the raindrops rolling down the shop window. My grip tightened on the wood chisel. Not out of anger, out of resolve. I know I don't deserve anything, she continued, but I just wanted to hear your voice, to tell you I was wrong. When I finally spoke, my voice came out like stone on steel. You don't get to rewrite history, Rebecca. She sucked in a breath. You made your choices. I made mine. Please, I'm remarried. That stopped her cold. What? She choked. Her name's Jenna. She knows the whole story. And she loves me anyway. No lies. No pretending. The line went silent. I gave everything I had to you, I continued calmly. I was loyal. I was present. I was honest. And you turned that into a lie you could live in until it collapsed. But Billy, he's not my son. That decision was made the moment you opened the door to another man and closed it on me. She started sobbing again. I'm not angry anymore, Rebecca. I'm not broken. I'm not bitter. I paused, then delivered the last line like a final nail in a clean coffin. I'm just done. Then I hung up. Didn't wait for a reply. I didn't want one. I set the phone down, turned back to the mantelpiece and picked up the chisel again. And in that moment, surrounded by sawdust, rain, and silence, I realized something powerful. Closure doesn't come when they apologize. It comes when you no longer need them to. I woke up before dawn and drove east until the road ran out. The beach was empty. No tourists. No lifeguards. Just miles of sand and the steady whisper of waves that didn't care about names, titles, or what you used to be. I kicked off my boots and walked barefoot through the cool grit, carrying nothing but a thermos of black coffee and a folding chair strapped to my shoulder. This wasn't a vacation. It was a statement, a full stop at the end of a long sentence. 6 months ago, I was a husband, a father, a man asleep inside a life he thought was solid. Now, I was something else entirely. Not angry, not wounded, just done. I set the chair down by the shore, the tide licking close but not touching. Saturday, poured myself a cup, watched the sun climb up from the water like it had somewhere to be. For the first time in years, my heart didn't feel like it was bracing for impact. I wasn't looking at my phone, waiting for another lie. I wasn't pretending in my own house. I was free, not because I forgave, not because I forgot, but because I faced it all, took it apart piece by piece, and left nothing standing that didn't belong to me. The house? Gone. The marriage? Over. The kid? Not mine. The pain? Real but not permanent. Rebecca used to tell me I was too quiet, that I held things in, that I didn't know how to express myself. But the truth is, I always knew how. I just didn't waste words on people who didn't listen. I never raised my voice. I raised proof. I didn't throw punches. I threw facts. I didn't beg. I walked. And every step since has been heavier with meaning and lighter with regret. The waves came a little closer, kissed the edges of my boots. I let them. I thought of the shop waiting for me back home, of the woman who loved the scars on my hands instead of the stories they could cover up. of the projects I'd yet to build, the land I owned with no shared signatures, and the quiet that didn't scream anymore. Peace doesn't come wrapped in closure. Comes when you stop chasing it. Comes when you outgrow the wreckage. And as the tide rolled in and the sun caught fire over the ocean, I leaned back in my chair, took another sip of coffee, and smiled. I didn't just survive betrayal. I outbuilt it,